That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we are to talk about The Estate, the sophomore film directed by Dean Craig, this premiered at the BFI London Film Festival and is being released November 4th, 2022, courtesy of Signature Entertainment Films.
What is Dean's first film?
As a director, Love, Wedding, Repeat from 2020, but he's probably best known as a screenwriter. He penned Frank Oz's original Death at a Funeral in 2007, which I think is an excellent film with some similarities to this, and of course was remade in 2010, courtesy of Neil LaBute with, is it Martin Lawrence and Chris Rock?
Sure. Based on the cast, because I really like Toni Collette, and of course Kathleen Turner in the film is exciting. Mm-hmm. And Anna Faris, I think, can be really funny. I was expecting, and then David Duchovny, I was expecting a lot more than I received.
There are kernels of interest here, but I guess I'll say it right up front. The stakes aren't high enough, and the parameters aren't clear enough for this to be kind of the raucous slapstick comedy that it should be.
Well, I have suggestions that I think could have made this better, but...
Of course, same.
The basic story is Kathleen Turner plays this old woman who's dying.
Hilda.
And we're told that she's very rich. She lives in a nice house that they're calling an estate. And her nieces and nephews find out she's dying. Mm-hmm. So they all descend onto her home with, like you already alluded to, no insight into like when is she dying, how much money she has, can they even stay there? And they all show up at her house to butter her up.
Indefinitely.
Yes, which makes no sense to me. Mm-hmm. Because they all have businesses outside of that. Like, two of them have restaurants. Mm-hmm. But anyway, they show up with the intent of like buttering her up so they can be placed into her will. And it's never really made clear how much she has. Someone throws out $20 million. So they do various things, mainly like just be nice to her and buy her gifts and make her breakfast. But it culminates with them, two of them bringing her like a high school, like a guy she knew from high school who she liked, to have sex with her. And they think that will win her over. But then it gets foiled because he's a sex offender.
And well, she decides that, why don't I just marry him?
And then
they all have a common enemy.
Yes. So it backfires because she's like, I'm going to marry him the following day and he'll get all my money. So then they all of the nieces and nephews join forces to stop it. And they do. But then she dies. And right, like as she's on her deathbed, again, they just very easily just say, hey, can you sign this paper saying that you're going to split all of your money equally between us? And she just signs it, mm-hmm. which felt so anticlimactic. Yeah. Then we find out, oh, go ahead.
No, and she says, you're all assholes.
And then she says, you're all assholes.
And then those are her last dying words.
And then we find out that her estate was worth $17 million. But because of back taxes, she really only has $38 left. That's it. And an ugly portrait of a dog that she wants to bequeath to Toni Collette.
Macey.
Because she felt like Toni's character always reminded her of that sad-ass dog. And the final scene of the film is, now everyone's back home, and Toni is with Anna, her sister, and their half-sister, playing like Dungeons and Dragons. And Anna's like really upset, and she's like, I hate this damn portrait, I'm gonna go burn it. So she takes it out, and as she picks it up, something falls from it, and it's a letter. And the letter says that portrait was appraised for $4.3 million. So the final shot of the film is Toni running out into the street to try to find her. The end. Oh, man. I think...
There are some funny moments. There are some genuinely funny moments that are set up well and executed just fine. But then it's so... I feel like it should have prized subtlety in so many ways as well.
Let me start with that, because my first note is the opening was kind of crunchy because we see Toni Collette waiting for her sister, Anna, to show up. And then Anna shows up late, all crazy. And it's like, did we get the loan? Because they own a restaurant, a cafe, and they're not doing well. And Toni says, no, we didn't get approved. So Anna's character runs into the bank and like throws hot coffee in the bank manager's face. And then Toni's like, this is not the bank that I applied for the loan to. I'm just standing in front of a bank. And then Anna's acting all crazy and they run. And that's the opening. I thought it was ridiculous.
Yes, and then we really don't. We learn a bit about Macey because she's twice divorced. She's dating a gentleman that's about to be shipped off to Alaska for his job.
And the joke about his character is that he always cries.
Geoff, yeah. But we really don't know anything about Savanna, Anna Faris's character, at all.
Not at all. She looks crazy.
She just is kind of the loose cannon younger sister who's not afraid to, shoot from the hip.
Then the other cousin, David Duchovny, he looks like someone who maybe has a little bit of money, and his main plot line is that he wants to have sex with Toni Collette, his cousin.
Apparently he's carried that torch for years.
And he keeps saying cousins are fair game, and it's just so over the top, but not funny.
Because it's, that's such a taboo subject, right? And it's so extreme, and it's let out the gate so quickly and so directly and bluntly that you have nowhere to go from there.
It needed to be subtle.
It needs to be subtle. We need to be creeping her out as we go along. I don't want to be in this house because I think my cousin is trying to screw me.
I thought...
And the things you could play with.
Yes. I thought the first funny moment for me was we find out that Toni Collette and Anna Faris's mom, who's played by...
Patricia French.
Is Kathleen Turner's sister. They hate each other. So there's a scene where they have the bright idea of taking Kathleen to go see her sister, and they get into a fight, which culminates with the other sister bringing out a gun.
A shotgun.
A shotgun. And it does go off, but nowhere near in the direction of the other sister. I thought that was funny.
And then you have Rosemarie DeWitt as Beatrice, and her husband, played by Ronald Livingston.
She's just so generically vile, and all she cares about is money. And then her husband is this noodle of a person who it's just so confusing to me because his wife is asking him to do some pretty crazy stuff, which we'll get to. But I thought Kathleen Turner did the best she could with what was given to her. There's a moment where she's talking about how she wants a man inside of her. She's drunk,
yeah, and she just repeats it a couple times, she'll never have that feeling again.
But then Beatrice is telling her husband, they find out that Anna and Toni are bringing some old sex offender to have sex with Kathleen. So she's like, we got to get ahead of the game. I want you to have sex with my aunt. And he's like, absolutely not. But ultimately he agrees. Which was so unbelievable.
Right, but as he's going, he approaches Kathleen Turner to do so. They're interrupted, but she's hacking up.
Yeah, she's spitting up a loogie into a mug, and he has to have sex with her, but he doesn't.
And it made me think Kathleen Turner is being utilized much in the same way as Gene Hackman in Heartbreakers.
Yes.
As this decrepit person who we're supposed to be kind of repulsed by, which...
Then I think, the character of the half-sister...
Oh, she drove me crazy. Ellen, played by Keyla Monterroso Mejia.
As an actor, she was fine, but I just think that character is she's supposed to be this, she's into Dungeons and Dragons. She always has a costume on. She's super nerdy. And then them getting her to agree to help with tricking Kathleen Turner's character.
It's very one note, but she's well utilized in, I think, the film's best scene where they're trying to sabotage Bill, the
sex offender.
The sex offender fiance.
They're trying to get a picture of him flashing. And I thought a funny line was they're telling the half-sister, you can't even keep a sex offender awake. I thought that was funny.
Yes, because he falls asleep next to her and they have to manipulate that. But her expressions and how she's used in that scene I thought were quite good.
And then throughout that entire scene, that man's penis, because he's passed out from drinking, his penis is just hanging out. I thought that was funny. Okay. What I think needed to happen to make this come together better is, first of all, there needed to be a precise timeline of events of what's happening. The family finds out that Kathleen Turner is terminally ill. She only has a week to live, and they find out she's visiting her lawyer on Monday.
Yes, to give them something to vie for.
Yes.
I have to impress her this weekend to get my name in that will.
Exactly.
Find out if it is, and then kill her.
Exactly.
It needs to be dark like that. It needs to be Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, The Ruling Class, with Peter O'Toole, or even something like Knives Out. It needed to have that kind of ensemble energy, But there's a clear objective here, and
Because
that was never clear.
No, because having these 6 people ultimately come together to try to get money that they're not even sure exists, and then what makes it worse is David Duchovny's character has a text message from Kathleen Turner
That thread goes nowhere either.
that says like, I'm going to give you all my money, but then it doesn't really go anywhere. So it's like, this feels so flimsy. I think the better story should have been that Kathleen Turner knows she's dying and she thinks her nieces and nephews ain't shit. So she invites them all to stay with her for a week, where she announces her impending death, and that she basically wants them to play a game where the person who shows her the most love and attention gets her money. And then they do all this crazy calamitous stuff.
Which is very much like the comedy version of House on Haunted Hill.
Exactly. And then in the end, we find out this bitch ain't got no money.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would have been better. But just these people who have lives, and we find out, we already know Toni, Collette, and Anna Faris are having financial problems. Then Beatrice, who's supposed to be the bougie sister, she ultimately admits that they're also, or cousin, she also admits that she's having hard financial times. So it makes no sense that they would just like drop everything to stay with this woman indefinitely with no plan to kill her.
Yeah, it's like Toni. Don't Macey and Savanna have to go back to the cafe? Like,
Right.
Shouldn't you be trying to make that money while you can? In case, what's your plan B?
The story, the story can be stupid if it's funny.
I agree.
I just didn't laugh that much.
I think I think Toni Collette is quite good, as she always
Yes.
is. I don't think she's doing anything extraordinary, but she's a very likable screen persona, and she's playing the one we're supposed to sympathize with the most.
But I wish her character...
The stakes, again, should have been higher. Like, we should, as you were saying earlier, you should have shown her being close to the aunt, but it's made clear to us that there's no way that she's going to get this money, and it would mean the most to her.
Because we're told that portrait of the dog that's worth $4+ million, the aunt bought it from like
A flea market.
flea market.
Yeah.
So we would understand that the aunt had no idea this was worth millions of dollars. So the fact that she gave it to Toni Collette is like meaningless. So that's why I wish it would have been...
Because if it would have been worth, if she would have known the worth, that means the family would have known the worth,
Right.
And then they would have squabbled over that. Maybe there's some ambiguity there. I don't think so.
I do think it was fun seeing Kathleen Turner.
It is. I haven't seen her since. She does bit spots here and there, but there's a 2011 indie film she did called The Perfect Family, which she has a little more to do in. But yes, I enjoyed seeing her. I like everybody in this. Again, I think it could have been just a little bit stronger, and I'm really surprised because Death at a Funeral, the script for that is so good. The original one is so good. But I don't know.
What would you give this one?
I think 2.5.
I would give it 2.5 out of 5 as well. Anything else? Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.